My coworkers thought my boyfriend was a figment of my lonely imagination, a pathetic lie I told myself. They stopped laughing the day he walked into our all-hands meeting as the company's new owner. The laughter was the worst part. It wasn't loud or boisterous. It was a low, simmering, and profoundly condescending titter that spread through the marketing department bullpen like a virus. It was the kind of laughter that said, "Oh, you poor delusional girl." And it was all directed at me. It started, as it always did, with Jessica. She was the self-appointed queen of our office, all sharp angles, sharper blazers, and a tongue that could strip paint. She leaned against the edge of my cubicle, one perfectly manicured nail tapping a rhythm of impatience on the particle board. "So, another magical weekend with Alex?" she asked, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Her two shadows, Chloe and Mark, hovered behind her, smirking. I tried to keep my face neutral, focusing on the spreadsheet on my screen. "It was nice, yes? We went to the botanical gardens." "The botanical gardens," Jessica repeated, drawing the words out as if they were a foreign concept. "How quaint. Did Alex buy you a rose, or did he just send you a picture of one this time?" Mark snorted. "Probably a stock photo." A hot flush crept up my neck. I hated this. I hated them. "He was there with me," I said, my voice quieter than I wanted. "We had a lovely time." For the past 6 months, ever since I'd let it slip that I was seeing someone, this had been my reality. His name was Alex. He was kind, intelligent, and devastatingly handsome. He was also incredibly busy. His work had him traveling constantly, often at a moment's notice. We cherished the time we had together, but it meant he couldn't come to mundane things like after-work drinks or my department's awkward bowling night. Because of this, and because I was notoriously private about my personal life, Jessica had concocted a theory. Alex didn't exist. He was a figment of my lonely imagination, a coping mechanism for a quiet girl in a big city, and once she'd planted that seed, it grew into a thorny bush of office gossip that pricked me every single day. "Show us a picture, then," Chloe chirped, her voice a little too eager. "A new one, from the gardens." My heart did a familiar, panicked little flutter. Alex hated having his picture taken. He was a deeply private person, and he valued his anonymity. He didn't have social media, and the few photos I had of us were on my personal phone, for my eyes only. I'd made the mistake of showing them one blurry picture early on, and they'd picked it apart. "It's so dark," Jessica had said, squinting. "That could be anyone. It could be your brother." "I don't have a brother." "I don't have to prove anything to you," I mumbled, turning back to my monitor. "Oh, honey," Jessica said, her voice dropping into a tone of mock pity that was far worse than the outright mockery. "You do, because right now, this is just sad. We're all worried about you, making up a perfect globe-trotting boyfriend. It's not healthy." I finally looked up, my eyes stinging. I saw it on their faces. They genuinely believed it. They thought I was pathetic, a liar, a lonely little girl playing make-believe. My hands started to tremble under the desk. I wanted to scream, to tell them that Alex was real, that his touch was real, that the sound of his laugh was the best thing I'd ever heard. I wanted to tell them about the little notes he left in my coat pockets, the way he'd call me from a different time zone just to hear my voice before he went into a meeting. But I knew it would just sound like more desperate fantasy to them. Anything I said would be twisted into more proof of my delusion. So I said nothing. I just took it. The pitying looks. The whispers when I walked to the coffee machine. It was a slow, daily erosion of my spirit. The day everything changed started with a different kind of tension. Our mid-sized tech company, a place I'd worked for 3 years, had been sold. Rumors had been flying for weeks, but that morning, we all got the email. An all-hands meeting at 2 p.m. in the main atrium to meet the new leadership. The air was thick with anxiety. People were worried about layoffs, about their whole world changing. But for Jessica, it was just another opportunity. As we were all filing into the atrium, she sidled up next to me. "Nervous?" she whispered, a cruel little smile playing on her lips. "Don't worry, I'm sure your imaginary boyfriend can get you a new job. Maybe he's a CEO of a Fortune 500 company in his spare time." I just stared straight ahead at the makeshift stage where our current CEO, Mr. Henderson, was nervously tapping the microphone. I felt a familiar lump form in my throat. I couldn't wait for this day to be over. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat, the sound echoing in the silent, cavernous room. "Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, this is a day of significant transition. While it's been an honor to lead this company, it's time for a new chapter. Our parent company has been acquired by a new firm, one with a bold vision for the future." He paused, taking a sip of water. The entire company held its breath. "It is my distinct honor," he continued, his voice regaining some strength, "to introduce you to the man who will be leading us forward, the face of that new vision. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Alexander Sterling." The name hit me like a physical blow. Alexander. My Alex. No, it couldn't be. It was a common name, a coincidence. My mind was racing, trying to dismiss the impossible thought. My Alex he worked in private equity, in acquisitions. He was successful, I knew that, but this? Then, the large double doors at the back of the atrium swung open. A man stepped through, flanked by two other people in sharp suits. He was tall, with dark hair that was just a little longer on top, wearing a bespoke navy suit that probably cost more than my car. He moved with an easy, predatory grace, an aura of absolute confidence that commanded the attention of every single person in the room. A wave of whispers and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jessica gasped beside me, "Oh my God, he's gorgeous." But I wasn't listening. My world had tilted on its axis. My blood was roaring in my ears, because I knew that suit. I'd helped him pick it out in Milan. I knew the tiny, almost invisible scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood cycling accident. I knew the way his eyes, a startling shade of stormy gray, would crinkle at the corners when he was truly happy. It was him. He walked past the front row, past our trembling CEO on the stage, his gaze sweeping across the sea of faces with a cool, detached assessment. It felt like he was looking for something, or someone. And then, his eyes. They found mine. Across the crowded room, his professional mask dissolved. A slow, warm, impossibly familiar smile spread across his face, a private smile I knew better than my own reflection. The world seemed to fade into a blur around us, ignoring the CEO, ignoring the board members, ignoring the stunned silence of the entire company. He changed his direction, and he started walking directly towards me. The world narrowed to a tunnel, the only thing at the end of it being Alex, walking towards me with an unstoppable, magnetic pull. My brain felt like a computer with too many tabs open, all of them frozen. The low hum of 1,000 side conversations in the atrium died abruptly. There was just the soft, rhythmic sound of his expensive leather shoes on the polished marble floor, each step a hammer blow against the wall of my carefully constructed anonymity. He didn't slow down. He parted the sea of stunned marketing and sales associates like Moses. I saw their faces as he passed. Shock, confusion, awe. My own team members, people I shared coffee with every morning, looked at me as if I'd suddenly grown a second head. And Jessica. Oh, Jessica. Her jaw was slack. The smug smirk she wore like a second skin wiped clean, replaced by utter, slack-jawed bewilderment. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, darted from the approaching titan in the navy suit to my face, searching for an answer her brain refused to provide. For the first time since I'd met her, she was utterly speechless. Then he was there, standing right in front of me. The air crackled. He was even more handsome up close, under the harsh corporate lighting. He smelled familiar, of sandalwood and bergamot, a scent that had lingered on my pillows just that morning. He ignored everyone else, his stormy gray eyes locked on mine, full of a love and apology that made my knees feel weak. Without a word, he closed the final inch between us and wrapped his arms around me. He pulled me into a hug so tight it almost lifted me off my feet, burying his face in my hair. It wasn't a polite, professional hug. It was the hug of a man who had been away too long, a desperate and grounding embrace that was meant only for me. In the dead silence of the corporate atrium, in front of hundreds of my colleagues, the new billionaire owner of the company was hugging me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. "I'm so sorry, my love," he whispered, his voice a low rumble against my ear, meant for me and me alone. My flight from Geneva was delayed. I wanted to tell you this morning, to prepare you for this circus. I couldn't speak. I just clung to him, inhaling his scent, the solid reality of him a shield against the hundreds of staring eyes. I could feel the vibrations of his heart beating steadily against my own frantic one. He was real. He was here. And everyone could see it. After a moment that felt like both a lifetime and a second, he loosened his hold, though he kept one arm securely around my waist, staking his claim. He turned, his gaze sweeping over the astonished faces of my department, lingering for a fraction of a second on Jessica's pale, horrified expression. Then he looked toward the stage, where Mr. Henderson stood frozen, his mouth agape like a fish. "Apologies, Mr. Henderson," Alex said, his voice now clear, confident and carrying through the silent room. It was the voice of a man used to absolute command. There was someone very important I needed to greet first. A collective, audible gasp rippled through the crowd. He wasn't even trying to be discreet. He was making a statement. He looked back down at me, his eyes softening again, before addressing the entire company. "For those of you who don't know her," he announced, his arm tightening around me, a gesture that was both protective and possessive. "This is Sarah, one of your talented marketing coordinators." He paused, letting the words hang in the air, letting everyone process my name and title. Then he delivered the final blow. "She is also the most important person in my life." The silence shattered. A wave of frantic whispers erupted, a firestorm of gossip igniting in an instant. I saw Chloe and Mark staring, their faces a mask of pure shock. And Jessica. The color had drained completely from her face. She looked like she'd seen a ghost, or worse, like her entire world view had just been systematically dismantled and shattered on the marble floor. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. The laughter was gone. All that was left was the horrifying public truth. Alex ignored the chaos he had created. He gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze and leaned in to whisper again. "Just breathe. We'll talk after this. I promise." Then, he guided me through the stunned crowd towards the front row, which had been reserved for senior executives. He didn't ask. He simply led me to a seat, a clear and unmistakable signal to everyone present. He waited until I sat down before he turned and strode onto the stage, taking the microphone from a still dumbfounded Mr. Henderson. He looked out over the company he now owned, his company. His expression was once again the cool, commanding mask of a CEO. He was in charge now. "Now," he began, his voice booming with authority, "let's talk about the future of this company." He let his eyes scan the room, and I swear they stopped for a moment, locking onto the section where my department stood huddled together. A chill went down my spine. "I'd like to start," he said, his voice dropping slightly, becoming dangerously calm, "with the marketing department. I've been reviewing your performance reports and internal communications for the past few weeks, and frankly, I have some serious concerns about the professional culture and toxic environment that seems to have taken root there." The word toxic hung in the air like poison gas. In the marketing huddle, Jessica flinched as if she'd been physically struck. Her face, which had been pale with shock, now flushed a deep, mottled red. Chloe and Mark exchanged panicked glances, suddenly looking like children caught with their hands in the cookie jar. The rest of my colleagues in the department shuffled their feet, refusing to meet anyone's gaze, a collective guilt washing over them. They had all been bystanders, watching the daily torment, content to stay out of Jessica's line of fire. Now the fire was coming for them all. My own heart was pounding against my ribs. I hadn't told Alex the details. Not really. I'd mentioned office politics, that some people were a bit cliquey, but I'd always downplayed it. I never wanted to sound like I was complaining or like I couldn't handle myself. I certainly never told him that his very existence had become the subject of cruel, daily ridicule. But Alexander Sterling hadn't gotten to where he was by being unobservant. He'd been reviewing internal communications. What had he seen? Slack messages? Emails? My stomach twisted into a knot. A company's greatest asset is its people, Alex continued from the stage, his voice resonating with power. He paced slowly, his eyes scanning the faces in the crowd, a predator sizing up its prey. And when the culture of a team becomes so corrosive that it stifles creativity, breeds animosity, and actively discourages collaboration, it is a cancer, and it must be cut out. He stopped pacing and looked directly at our section again. I believe in leading by example. I believe in fostering an environment of respect, integrity, and professionalism. What I do not believe in and what I will not tolerate under my leadership is bullying. The word landed with the force of a bomb. Bullying. He'd said it. He'd named the beast that had been hiding under my desk for 6 long months. I saw Jessica physically recoil, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. She shot a look at me, a flash of pure, venomous hatred. It was no longer about some imaginary boyfriend. This was about me and the fact that I had, in her mind, somehow brought this public reckoning down upon her. My team has already begun a comprehensive review of all departments, Alex said, his tone shifting back to business, but with a new, sharper edge. There will be restructuring. There will be changes. Some of them will be immediate. He gestured to one of the men who had walked in with him, a severe-looking man with silver hair. Mr. Davies here is my head of corporate restructuring. He and his team will be conducting individual performance and conduct reviews, starting this afternoon. The entire atrium seemed to collectively hold its breath. Individual reviews. This afternoon, it was a bloodbath. We are looking for talent. We are looking for dedication. We are looking for people who want to be part of a winning team built on mutual respect. Alex declared, anyone who does not fit that description will find that their future is not with this company. His gaze was cold steel. He wasn't just talking about redundant positions anymore. He was talking about a purge. He went on to speak for another 10 minutes, laying out a brilliant and aggressive vision for the company's future, talking about market expansion and technological innovation. But I barely heard a word of it. My mind was reeling. I was sitting in the front row, at the right hand of a man who had just publicly declared me the most important person in his life, and then threatened to dismantle the very department that had made my life a living hell. The whiplash was dizzying. I felt a strange, terrifying mix of vindication and dread. When the meeting concluded, the room erupted into a frenzy of nervous chatter. People started moving, but it was aimless, shell-shocked. Mr. Davies and his team of corporate assassins were already moving toward the elevators with clipboards, their faces grim. The purge was beginning. Before I could even think about what to do next, Alex was by my side, his hand on the small of my back. "Come with me," he said quietly, his voice a stark contrast to the commanding CEO on stage. He guided me away from the dispersing crowd towards a side door that led to the executive suites. As we walked, I couldn't help but look back. I saw Jessica frozen in place being approached by Chloe and Mark. Their faces were ashen, but Jessica wasn't looking at them. She was staring at me. Her eyes narrowed into slits. The look on her face wasn't just hatred anymore. It was a promise of war. Alex led me into a lavish, empty corner office that I assumed was now his. It had a sweeping panoramic view of the city, a view I'd only ever seen in promotional brochures. He closed the door, shutting out the noise and chaos, and for the first time, we were alone. He turned to me, his shoulders slumping slightly, the CEO mask falling away to reveal the man I loved. "I am so sorry about that," he said, running a hand through his hair. "This whole acquisition was supposed to be confidential until the last minute. I was going to tell you last night, but the deal almost fell through. It was a 20-hour marathon of negotiations, then the flight delay. I wanted to get to you before this meeting. I never wanted to put you on the spot like that." "Alex," I whispered, my voice hoarse, "you own my company." A small, wry smile touched his lips. "It would appear so." He stepped closer and gently cupped my face in his hands. "Are you okay? You look like you're about to faint." I didn't know what to say. They thought I made you up." The words came out in a rush, a pathetic confession. His expression darkened instantly. The warmth in his eyes was replaced by a flash of cold fury. "They what?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "Sarah, what have they been doing to you?" And so it all came pouring out. The snide comments, the condescending laughter, Jessica's relentless campaign to paint me as a delusional liar. I told him about the stock photo comments and the constant demands for proof. As I spoke, his jaw tightened, and a muscle began to tick in his cheek. He listened without interrupting, his anger a palpable force in the room. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment, just looking at me, his thumb gently stroking my cheek. "That ends now," he said, his voice a low growl. "That ends today." He pulled me into another hug, this one softer, more comforting. "I'm so sorry I didn't see it. I should have asked more questions." "It's not your fault," I mumbled into his chest. "I didn't want to bother you with it." He pulled back to look at me. "Your happiness is never a bother, Sarah. Ever." He kissed my forehead, then his expression turned serious. "Which is why I have a proposition for you, a way to solve this problem for good." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" "Resign," he said simply. "You don't have to work here another day. You never have to see these people again. We can travel together. You can do anything you want, pursue any dream you have. You don't need this place." It was a tempting offer, an escape hatch from all the misery, to just walk away and never look back. But then I thought of Jessica's face, of her smug superiority. I thought of all the times I had sat at my desk, my stomach in knots, feeling small and powerless. If I just disappeared, they would win. They'd invent a new story that the billionaire got tired of his charity case and paid her off. They would never truly understand how wrong they were. "No," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. "I'm not resigning." Alex looked surprised. "Sarah, you don't have to prove anything to them." "It's not for them," I interrupted, a new, unfamiliar fire igniting in my chest. "It's for me. I'm not going to let them run me out of my own life." I took a deep breath, an idea forming, as audacious and terrifying as the man standing in front of me. "In fact," I said, meeting his gaze, my decision solidifying with every word, "I want a promotion." Alex stared at me, his gray eyes searching mine. The surprise on his face slowly melted away, replaced by a slow-burning look of profound admiration. A wide, genuine smile spread across his lips, the kind I rarely saw but cherished whenever I did. It was the smile of a man who had just discovered a new, exhilarating facet of the woman he loved. "A promotion," he repeated, his voice a low, appreciative rumble. He let out a soft laugh. "Of course. Why am I not surprised?" He shook his head, looking at me as if seeing me for the first time. "What do you have in mind?" "The head of marketing," I said, the words tasting bold and unfamiliar on my tongue. The position has been open for 3 months. I know the product lines, I know the market, and I have ideas that have been ignored and shot down for years. I can do the job, Alex. I know I can." This was the truth. I had always been good at my job, meticulous and creative. But my quiet nature meant I was often overlooked. My ideas were either dismissed by our old uninspired director, or worse, stolen by Jessica and presented as her own. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming the professional respect I had earned, but never been given. Alex didn't hesitate. "Done," he said, his smile turning predatory. "But we're going to do this my way. You're not just going to be given the job, you're going to take it. Let's give them a show." An hour later, I walked back into the marketing department. The atmosphere was a morgue. Mr. Davies and his team had swept through, leaving a trail of shattered careers in their wake. Mark was gone, his desk already being cleared out by security. Chloe was sitting at her cubicle, openly weeping. And Jessica was still there. She was standing by her desk, her face a thunderous mask of rage and disbelief. She had survived the initial cull, but she looked like a queen whose castle had just been stormed, her power stripped away, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. She saw me enter, and her eyes narrowed. "What are you doing here?" she spat, her voice laced with venom. "Did your billionaire sugar daddy get tired of you already?" Before I could respond, the silver-haired Mr. Davies walked into the bullpen, his presence silencing the entire floor. He was followed by Alex. The sight of him sent another wave of panic through the remaining employees. "Gather round, everyone," Mr. Davies announced, his voice clipped and efficient. He didn't wait. He just started speaking as everyone nervously clustered together. "As part of the ongoing restructuring, we are making a change in the leadership of this department, effective immediately." He gestured towards Jessica. "Jessica, your tenure as senior marketing manager is over. Please pack your personal belongings. Security will escort you out." Jessica's jaw dropped. "What? You can't do this. I have been the top performer in this department for 5 years." Alex stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Your sales numbers have been adequate, Jessica," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "But your leadership skills are non-existent. This company is moving in a new direction, one that prioritizes collaborative and respectful leadership. You, I'm afraid, do not fit the criteria." Jessica's face contorted with fury. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an ally, and found none. Everyone was staring at the floor. Then her gaze landed on me, and the hatred in her eyes was so potent, I could almost feel it. "This is because of her, isn't it?" she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. "You're firing me because of this pathetic little nobody." Alex didn't even look at me. He kept his cold, steely gaze locked on Jessica. "You're fired," he said, his voice dropping to an icy whisper, "because for the last 6 months you have led a campaign of psychological abuse against a member of your team. You have fostered a toxic environment of gossip and ridicule. You are a liability, not a leader, and I don't employ liabilities." He let the words sink in, the silence thick with her public humiliation. 2 security guards appeared at her side. Defeated, her shoulders slumped. As they led her away, her eyes met mine one last time. There was no defiance left, only the hollow, bitter understanding that she had picked a fight with someone she had profoundly underestimated, and she had lost spectacularly. Once she was gone, Alex turned his attention to the shell-shocked remnants of the department. "As I said, we are moving in a new direction," he announced. "This department needs new leadership, someone with fresh ideas, institutional knowledge, and the integrity to lead with respect." He turned and looked directly at me. Every eye in the room followed his. "Sarah, will you accept the position of interim head of marketing?" My heart was hammering, but my voice was steady when I replied, "Yes, I accept." A murmur of disbelief went through the small crowd. Chloe looked up from her desk, her tear-streaked face a picture of pure, unadulterated shock. "Good. Alex said with a nod. Your first task will be to rebuild this team, evaluate your remaining staff, decide who is worth keeping. You have my full support to hire, fire, and restructure as you see fit to create a department worthy of this company's future. He looked at me, a silent message passing between us. He was giving me the power to decide the fate of those who had stayed silent, who had laughed along with Jessica, and who now looked at me with a newfound desperate respect. Then, in front of everyone, he smiled that private, warm smile that was just for me. I expect a full report on my desk by Monday, he said, the professional CEO back in place, but with a twinkle in his eye. Don't be late. As he and Mr. Davies walked away, I was left standing in the center of the bullpen, the new nexus of power. The remaining team members, including a very humbled Chloe, were staring at me, their expressions a mixture of fear and awe. The laughter was gone. The condescension was gone. All that remained was a deafening silence, filled with the unspoken truth that had been so cruelly denied for months. My boyfriend did exist, and he had just handed me the keys to the kingdom. I looked around at my new department, at the ashes of the old regime, and for the first time in a very long time, I smiled. It was time to get to work,